It's February 14th in Valentine Bluffs, and love is in the air. But so is the legend of Harry Warden, a psychotic miner who vowed to attack the Valentine's Day dance if it ever happened again. After 20 years, the dance is reinstated, and Harry Warden returns to make good on his promise. People are killed in Valentine Bluffs, and the local law must figure out a way to stop a living legend in the 1981 Canadian slasher flick, My Bloody Valentine. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
I'm John Allred.
And this is a very late, very cold episode of Filmgazm. Happy Friday, listeners. Before we get started, I'd like to fill you all in on the situation here in Texas and explain why this episode is late. Had a big old fuck you from nature this week. Snow in Texas and an unprepared infrastructure. Snowstorm wiped out water and power for pretty much the whole state. We were not prepared for that. So 4 inches of snow has completely wiped us out. We're barely coming back, one at a time, depends on the various grids here, various energy companies. I've got electricity, but no water. So hoping on that. Austin, Julie, and myself have been pretty much in the same boat for a few days now. It's only starting to ease its way back. It was really bad on Tuesday, our normal recording night, so we had no choice but to postpone this episode until we could record. Josh lives on the East Coast, so he's been fine, but we have been in a frozen hell. So happy that we can finally do this. Sorry we missed our first Wednesday in 2 years. Fuck. Needed to get that off my chest.
That's all good. I mean, it's not like you could just even go to Mexico or anything to, get out of there for a little while, Yeah. Like one of your fearless leaders.
Fuck him so hard. You don't even know, man. We are all like, we want his blood. It's crazy down here.
Okay. Not to drag things into a political fucking arena, but that he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar as if nobody's going to know who he is. And then he's like, oh no, I was just doing it for my children. My daughter needed to go to Mexico. He's like, shut up, bro. You got caught and now you're walking it back. Meanwhile, private citizen Beto O'Rourke actually doing something. I'm like, Fuck off, man. And the thing I've seen on Twitter from a lot of it, there were plenty of people that lived in Texas and they're like, we're not going to forget this.
Oh no.
And I'm like, God, if there is ever a place in the country where people hold a grudge and don't forget, fucking Texas.
Our slogan is don't mess with Texas for a fucking reason. This is not over. Oh God. So yeah. Releasing this one on Friday. We will probably have the schedule back up and running next week, but everything's kind of up in the air right now. So we'll have episodes out on all 3 shows when they come out. That's kind of the best I can promise right now. Oh, so there's no rewind today. So let's jump right in. So Josh, you picked My Bloody Valentine because this past Sunday was Valentine's Day. There's any number of romantic horror flicks we could have done. Hell, Julie and I did Fatal Attraction last week, specifically for Valentine's Day. Why My Bloody Valentine?
So, I mean, there's a lot of like subgenres and different offshoots of horror movies and things like that. And I think one of the things that kind of often gets overlooked, but it's been pretty prevalent through the 70s and into today is Canada. Canada has been the backdrop for, it stood in for the States in a lot of movies, particularly one of their early slashers, Black Christmas, shot in Canada, but it was dressed up to look like America. I think one of my favorite words is Canucksploitation. And that term is used for movies like My Bloody Valentine. I've got a list that I'll go over kind of in the heyday in the 80s, and then kind of a resurgence in a way where the kids who grew up watching these movies started making some of their own. And it's amazing. I was talking to my friend Ty about it because I asked him kind of what his thoughts were about My Bloody Valentine, and stacking it up against the other slashers, it's okay. I think the fact that it came early definitely lent itself to having some kind of lasting legacy, whereas a lot of things that came the mid to late 80s, they were going to get lost in the shuffle up against the newest Friday the 13th or the latest Nightmare on Elm Street, those kind of movies, the Halloween franchise that was rolling all through there. Those guys were going to dominate. And you got little movies like this, something that didn't really do much when it came out. It was pretty polarizing on either end by critics. Some called it, just pure trash. Others were like, this is great. They used the setting to full effect and created some real like atmospheric horror in a way. Because I mean, who likes being underground? Fuck that. And I think the fact that this movie is 40 years old this year and people are still talking about it says something. And that was what I brought up to you when we were kind of batting around ideas for the next episode that I was going to be on. I was like, it's a 40-year anniversary. Got to do this. So absolutely. I mean, yeah, I love it. It's cheesy. It's goofy. And it's got a little bit of history behind it. So yeah, totally.
Right on. Yeah, legacy's huge here. I love doing, celebrating anything's anniversary. 40 years is a hell of a landmark for any film. And yeah, I'm excited to get to talk about this. But I didn't think it was perfect. I mean, I thought it was kind of goofy at times, but it wasn't too bad. Made me laugh. I found myself caring way more about the love triangle than I expected, which was weird. I was like, come on, realize who you're supposed to be with here. I love what I do. Like the murders are kind of secondary, and I'm like, I want to know who she ends up with. Impressive.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the original title of this film was The Secret. The title was changed to My Bloody Valentine to cash in on the recent holiday serial killer trend, which was really popular at the time. And the more I learn about these, the more I just find it hilarious. I mean, you had films like Black Christmas, Halloween, Friday the 13th, taking the horror community by storm. You also had movies like Mother's Day, New Year's Evil. Like they went as like, I'm surprised there's not like an Arbor Day movie. Like they just grabbed every holiday they could and threw a killer onto it and made a movie. I mean, respect.
I mean, okay, so I think in a way it is kind of genius. I mean, it's an obvious thing when you think about it. At the same time, if you just pick a holiday and like, fuck, what do I do with it? I mean, it actually kind of allows you to be free and work within that. I mean, this movie would have been really, really bad. Could have been really bad. Because, I mean, you think of how cheesy Valentine's Day is. And you think about how just awful the whole concept of it is. I had plenty of arguments with girlfriends in the past about why I thought Valentine's Day was bullshit. You don't get into arguments about stuff like that, And so I think what they did with it was pretty clever. Valentine's Day was just kind of like the backdrop, and it was part of the town's past, and it worked with it. I think, and part of what I'll get to is that this movie was pretty extreme for when it came out, and it even got chopped. A quote I got from one of the producers was that he said it was just cut to ribbons because of the MPAA. Our favorite fucking terrible organization of shitheads. I don't really know how else to describe them, but yeah. So yeah, the MPAA got their hands on this, and Yeah, there's actually a couple of interesting facts I found about that. So when
Right
it
on.
comes time to share those, I'll pull those out.
Yeah. I do agree that it is creative, and it's a great place to start for anyone making a horror movie to like pick a holiday and build from there. I like that. The whole Valentine bluffs thing, like it was so like jammed down our throats with My Bloody Valentine. Like, hey, in case you didn't catch it, Valentine's Day is important in this town. Like, way too important. That was kind of goofy. I want to see New Year's Evil just from the title. I mean, I want to know what that's all about.
It's something else. We'll put it like that.
Right.
But again, the fact that movies like that would have come and gone and left to die on VHS are still around. They're getting they're getting remastered and brought back for a new generation of people who I went and saw the remake of My Bloody Valentine in theater when it came out, and it was my first experience seeing Tom Atkins on the big screen. I mean, I had seen him in Maniac Cop and Night of the Creeps and things like that before, but that was like me seeing him up on the big screen, and I was just like, oh, he's horror royalty. I mean, he worked with John Carpenter. Like the man is an institution as far as I'm concerned. So how can you not enjoy that? And he was great. And I mean, he was trademark Tom Atkins in that remake. So the fact that that somebody saw something in there to mine, pun intended, just shows what kind of legacy this movie has.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about it today on the podcast if it, hadn't lasted this long. And yeah, I'm glad we're here to shine a light on this. I haven't seen the remake yet. I'm a big Supernatural fan, so I watch anything Jensen Ackles is in, so it is on my list. I did see Jared Padalecki's Friday the 13th remake, and that was pretty shitty, but I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed parts of it. I just felt like it was they tried too hard cramming in like 3 sequels worth of lore into it to make their own thing. I mean, if you think about it, it's equal parts Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, and Friday the 13th Part 3.
Oh, straight
all
up.
Crammed into one movie. And they could have found a better way to go about it. I enjoyed it. Sure. Who doesn't want to see 14th in a movie theater? Like, come on. So it's not one of my favorites. So I can't really, I can't really stand behind it, compared to others.
Yeah, fair enough. I find it interesting that there's a guy who plays the same douchebag in Friday the 13th and Transformers, which combines those two universes for some reason. So Jason and Optimus Prime exist in the same universe because of this one asshole. I'll take it. Why not? So stupid. My Bloody Valentine was directed by George Mihalka. It was his second film after 1980's Pickup Summer. Some of his other films include Scandal, Eternal Evil, Hostile Takeover, and Straight Line, among some others. I haven't heard of any of his movies, but they're probably all Canadian productions, which is why I haven't heard of any of them. Have you seen anything else by this guy?
No.
So yeah, I guess this is his big one, his mark on film. It's good. Everyone's got to have their one. Paul Kelman plays TJ, the heartthrob hero who returns home to work in his father's mine. Kelman is an English actor who didn't do much else besides the films Gas and Black Roses in the 80s. And he is terrible. I mean, he's just, oh my God, this guy. But you can hear his accent break so many times. he's not a very good hero, I don't think.
I felt like he was trying to play the jilted lover a little too much, and he kind of had just like, it was parts of this movie felt very melodramatic, and I don't know if that was like coming off of the 70s where a lot of, some semblance of like realism and like how people really interact with each other, things like that. If that kind of had some lingering effect performance for some of them, because a lot of it just felt, I mean, it's campy, it's a little over the top, and but I also think if they tried to play it too straight and like not have anything to either intentionally or unintentionally just kind of snicker at, I don't know that this movie would be as enjoyable. I think one of my favorite characters in the whole thing, Allred.
Yeah.
Like he's a fucking idiot, and he's just all about having fun and getting hammered on Moosehead, which, fun fact, is a real beer, and my mom loved it. Mom loved that shit. It was the weirdest thing. Like I remember seeing it when I was a kid. She had these bottles of Moosehead. I'm like, Mom, what is that? She's like, oh, it's Canadian beer. I was like, oh, okay. And then I get older, and then you was it Big Daddy when Jon Stewart was in that or some shit? And he's like, yeah, Canadian beers like moonshine. And I just think about that the whole time. And yeah, pretty sure, because it was shot in Canada, they got, a bunch of free Moosehead for it. The big fucking neon sign in the bar.
That's cool. It's funny how you mention kind of the line that, horror movies need to have a certain amount, or some horror movies need to have a certain amount of goofiness just to work. And it is interesting that horror is like unique in that case. Like a lot, you don't need in drama the occasional slapstick shit to like keep people on their toes. That would be awesome if in like the middle of Schindler's List somebody slipped on a banana peel or something. But in horror, like especially slashers, they can't take themselves too seriously, or else something gets lost in the translation.
Yeah, and I think with any horror movie that has humor in it, it's kind of just like and I think I've used the phrase before, it's like a release valve. It just allows you to remove yourself from the tension that's been built up for a little bit, and if it's used right, it can even be deceptive. It can allow you to kind of think, okay, we're good, and then something happens out of nowhere and you're like, oh shit. And especially with slashers, these movies are not meant to be really examined for like the technique, their construction, the writing, and like all these other technical aspects of filmmaking. However, there are parts of that in a lot of slashers. They're more made, and I've used it before, they're party movies. There's something you can put on in the background, have some friends over, and you don't need to think too much.
Yeah.
And I'm all about having something challenge you and kind of make you think, and sometimes leave you unsatisfied, or like not wrap everything up, because it forces you to talk about what you watched. These movies, it's the exact opposite. You're laughing and making fun of what you're seeing here because it's hyperbolic. There's no way people are going to act this way in real life. They do in slasher movies. And I think one of the things that annoys me when I'm watching these with somebody who isn't really big into horror, and they just go, oh, so stupid. Why would anybody do that? And I'm just like, can you just not have fun with this right now? Like, why are you big dumb guy in a mask kills people? That's all you need to know. Like you don't. It's all about the boobs, the blood, and that's it. Just fun. Just have fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like a good, serious, scary horror movie, but I can also appreciate a goofy slasher that's just here to make me, scream and laugh. That's nice. It's nice to have that kind of release. Like I see, when Caleb and I first started Filmgazm, he found out I hadn't seen any of the Friday the 13th movies. So he sat me down and forced me to watch all of them in one day. We watched Friday the 13th all the way to Freddy versus Jason and just zoomed through that shit the whole time. And it was one of the best days ever because we just watched all this crazy, gory, ridiculous shit and laughed at it the whole time. It was fun. And then we did the same thing for Elm Street like 2 weeks later. Yeah, you need that sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, you need to have a little variety, and I think slashers are kind of like, this is gonna be a terrible analogy, but slashers are the pizza of horror movies. Like everybody likes it. Everybody likes them. Everybody likes them. You eat it cold. You know, the crust is great. Just there's no bad part to these movies.
Yeah. And slashers, just like pizza, when they're not that great, it's still, edible.
Still pizza.
That's actually a really good analogy.
Damn, I'm good. Fuck. I impress myself sometimes.
Lori Hallier plays Sarah, the girlfriend trapped in a love triangle she could easily get out of. Frankly, both these guys kind of suck. Hallier mostly did bit parts on various TV shows throughout her career, never really did another film. Neil Affleck plays Axel, the douchebag boyfriend. No relation. I was curious. He is not related to Ben or Casey Affleck. They're not Canadian. Affleck would go on to become an animator on The Simpsons, which he did in the 80s and 90s. Also worked on the Simpsons movie, and he played a medical student in Scanners. So pretty cool that he ended up kind of working, like being one of the animators for The Simpsons. That's a neat thing to put on your resume.
For real.
Yeah. And he's an interesting character. He looked so much like the guy who played Daredevil's dad in 2003's Daredevil. Like, I thought it was the same guy. Turns out it's not. It's been funny because in that he would have been Ben Affleck's dad. So I was really thinking, like, he's got to be one of the Afflecks, right? That can't be a common name.
I mean, you would think.
Axel's such an interesting character. I did kind of, spoiler alert, by the way, for everybody, but this is the 126th, fourth episode. So you should know what we're about by now. I totally kind of called it when it was him, when he was Harry Warden. I kind of figured that out towards the end. I'm like, it's Axel, isn't it? But what did you think? Like when you first saw this, were you expecting that?
So I wasn't even really trying to figure it out. Mostly because I had heard about how it got like chopped up and a lot of the gore was removed. So I actually have it on DVD where a lot of those scenes were restored.
Oh.
Still kind of in their raw state. So they're just like inserted in. However, it definitely adds to it. And you see, and you're just like, whoa, like they were really going for something here. So I saw it and I was just like, wow, like this is amazing. This movie is amazing. And I was just kind of enjoying it. When it came around, I was, all right, whatever. But I think they tried to do a good job. I don't know that Neil Affleck's he was really trying to hide it, because he just and maybe too TJ kind of being as brooding as he was definitely the red herring in it, because like he's playing with so much emotion and he's always flying off the handle and he's all bent out of shape and just came back. So what was he really doing in California? Like stuff like that. So I mean, I think it played a little bit with the whole whodunit aspect of it, while still that maybe it really is Harry Warden until the very end, when you find out, no, that fucking guy's been dead. He died a while ago. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I mean, I watched it again a couple of days ago, and I was like, I was sitting there going like, okay, I know Axel did it. Now I'm just trying to figure out where is he, and like, because like if he's not around when something happens, and you're like, all right, this fucking guy did something. And I just and honestly, I didn't really like him. I don't really like him. Yeah. Even though TJ is the emo one of the bunch, I kind of thought he was cooler.
Well, I think that she can do better. I think they're both just selfish assholes, and she can do better. But at least Axel lets you know. Yeah, Axel's
she's a mining.
Yeah, TJ, I mean, he left and he didn't say he was coming back. And that's a breakup. Like, what do you expect her to wait for you for years? And then, she's going to move on, but she's going to move on to like the biggest prick on the island or Midwest or wherever the hell this is. And he's just like so vocal about like, hey, she's mine. She's always going to be mine. She doesn't even love you anymore. Like in front of her. Like, you don't do that shit in front of your girl, man. Like, God, it's just, yeah, it's weird, but I found that very engaging.
And I think that people in Valentine Bliss would be the uber romantics or something, and she would just sit there and pine away and wait for him to come back. But why, I don't know. This is another reason why I have a problem with Valentine's Day, because it's like, it's the one day of the year you're supposed to show love. I'm like, so what about the other days? They just don't mean anything. So if I got you flowers on February 13th, it wouldn't mean anything. Oof, gotcha. Okay.
I regrettably have not had a lot of opportunities to celebrate Valentine's Day, so working on that. I haven't like never celebrated Valentine's Day. It just happens in a long time. Good times. But still, I would never want to live in this town. I mean, it's like fucking living in Christmas land, A Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, yeah, I love Christmas, but every day, no. I like to be reminded of that constantly. Like, hey, Christmas is almost here. Like, that's what they do in this town. They're like, hey, it's almost Valentine's Day. Like, what the fuck?
I couldn't do that. I mean, and how mining towns are ran, right? Like, they're basically made to like keep people there. At least, like from what like in the old day of coal mining and things like that. How they would essentially have their own money and pay people not real money, but the coal mining company's money. Yeah. And you could only use it in there. So you're just like trapped and you're stuck there until you fucking die. And oh, by the way, you're raising your kids to fucking work in the mine. You're just like, oh, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever. So I could just imagine all these fucks. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's screwed everybody. And oh, by the way, you're never leaving. So guess what? You're probably going to be screwing the same 4 guys the entire time you live in this town, which is terrible. It's terrible. But at least there's Moosehead. You got that.
Fuck. Yeah. Mining towns are hell. Nobody wants to do that. Like they kind of gloss over that in this movie about how like his dad runs a mine and it's like the biggest employer in this town because of course it is. And everyone's kind of just like treating it like a 9-to-5, but mining is not that kind of gig. It's like that's kind of a like that's a permanent situation. People don't just move on from being a miner.
Nah, man. Nah.
Jeez. It's a legacy job. My dad was a miner, my granddad was a miner, and his dad was a miner, and it just never stops. But, if I lived in a mine where some crazy dude started chopping people up, I'd probably try to find another job as best I could. I'd fail because this is a mining town, but I'd try. Keith Knight plays Hollis, who I can best describe as the weird friend. Knight also appeared in Meatballs, class of 1984, and he did a lot of voice work in cartoon shows over the years. He died in 2007 at 51 years old from brain cancer, but he feels like 20 years older than every other dude he hangs out with in this movie. I love that he's just there. Like he's open to whatever the hell, and he just goes with it. I love that. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's the wild card. Like he just like even when things are going off the rails crazy and people are dying, he's just like, let's go party in the mines, let's get drunk and get fucked up, let's go have fun. That's all he cares about. Fucking jolly fat man in this fucking movie. I think, okay, so something that is a little unique about this movie is that setup of the characters, in that they're not all horny teenagers. They're a bunch of horny 20-something miners. So the age of the cast is a little different, instead of what became pretty paint by numbers with Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the Halloween movies. I mean, name it. A lot of The Burning. You know, it's either summer camp or it's, you know, teenagers in suburbia, and that was pretty much it. I think that's another thing that is unique about this movie.
Well, also, like, I mean, you can't get a lot of better horror locations, like horror settings, in a fucking mine. I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, anything that's, you know, subterranean is fucking scary. So yeah, I think that it's got a, like, the whole like last half of the movie where the kids are trapped in the mine and Harry's hunting them. I was engaged the whole time. I was like, fuck, this is good. So yeah, I think this has a lot going for it. Cynthia Dale plays Patty. She also appeared in Moonstruck, Heavenly Bodies. She had a leading role in the TV series Street Legal. It's always funny looking at these guys' IMDb pages to see what they went on to do. Most of the time, it's not much, but it's always neat to see somebody who had like a little bump here and there. You know, they were in Moonstruck, had a TV show in the 80s. Good for them. Don Franks plays Chief Newby. He also appeared in such films as Johnny Mnemonic, Heavy Metal, I'm Not There. And he did numerous voices on the Care Bears, of all things. And he also voiced Sabretooth on X-Men, the animated series. So cool. I mean, he was in so many Care Bears, like just listed as voice. So I don't know who he played in the Care Bears, but he was in the Care Bears.
He was the Care Bears. I don't know. I'm just making a joke, but that's a relation. And it's actually I had no idea about the whole Sabretooth thing. Like, was that the 90s X-Men?
Yeah, the good one.
That is still hands down one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I was giddy when I saw it on Disney Plus when I first got it, and I was like, oh my god. My kids were like, what's that, Dad? I was like, it's the best cartoon ever. Shut up, I'll show you. So yeah, I've exposed it to him gradually.
Nice. I have I had a tape when I was a kid that had like 3 episodes of the X-Men cartoon, and I loved it. And I never saw anything else from it. So now that I have Disney Plus, I can actually watch that show. When I was a kid, like my big one was the Spider-Man, the animated series.
Yep.
I watched that whole thing. I thought that was so cool. Like when Doctor Strange showed up and Carnage and like the way they did the whole Captain America thing, like that was a cool show. Marvel had it made in the 90s. Like with their cartoons, they were kicking ass.
Yeah, it's a great time to be alive. I loved it.
Oh, yeah. Franks also died of cancer in 2016 at 84, but the Care Bears will live forever. And so will Sabretooth. It's one of his powers. My Bloody Valentine has an IMDb score of 6.3, Rotten Tomatoes score of 58%, kind of mixed. Grossed $5.7 million on a budget of $2.3 million, so not a huge hit, but it did make a bit of money. Received mixed reviews upon release, but has since been embraced as a cult favorite, which kind of the deal with a lot of horror movies. And most of the time they make their money back. If they're not appreciated now, they will be appreciated later.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. So let's talk a bit about the movie, some highlights, some stuff worth talking about. I love Harry Warden's whole like bloody guts in a Valentine's box motif. I love picturing him setting up these elaborate traps for the cops. Like this dude in a fucking mining outfit, just like pasting together a box that contains a full human heart and just leaving it outside the police station. Makes me laugh. Although he probably was just Axel doing that. Probably wasn't walking around town in the mining outfit. But still, pretty cool.
Well, the opening scene is pretty great. Right down in there with Harry and this chick you don't know is a chick until she starts taking off her coveralls, and you're like, whoa, all right, this is gonna. But see, and in a subtle way, they set up that something terrible is gonna happen, because as soon as they get there, that pickaxe goes right into the wall, and I don't think I really picked up on it at first, but the second time I watched it, I was like, oh shit, foreshadowing, gotcha. And then there's just that weird exchange they have where he's still got on his gear, and she's like stroking his fucking his hose. And she's trying to take off his mask. He's like, and you're just like, oh my god, like, woof. And then it's just so abrupt that it's just like right up against that pickaxe, and you're just like, oh, all right, here we go.
It's what's that term for? There's a film term for it. Chekhov's gun, I think it's called. Where like if there is a gun in the scene, it's going to be fired at some point.
Yeah. I don't remember the actual term for it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's the same for pickaxes. There's a pickaxe in the scene, someone's going to fall on it or be stabbed with it.
It's true, or it's going to go through your chin and come out your eyeball.
Yep, those are the rules.
Yep.
I love when they were playing Five Finger Fillet because that always makes me think of Aliens. Like, you ever done that?
Yes, of course I have. Come on.
Yeah, me too.
I know how to have fun.
It's the stupidest. It's so stupid to do that, but you can't help it. Like me, because I just want to be like Bishop, but I'm trying to do it. I've stabbed myself in the hand many times.
Totally. But you also see like, and this is probably just from watching so many movies and being able to catch the difference. Those are some fake ass hands they're using the entire time. Just like watching, you're just like, oh my god, they didn't even really try to match the skin tone on these things. Hey, whatever. Let's see what happens. And I mean, I think it's a great scene because it's just showing them kicking back, and this is what they do. Like, of course, miners are going to play a game like that after they get out of inhaling fucking coal dust, which is going to kill them. Like, why not try and cut off some fingers? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, you're gonna drink and you're gonna do whatever the fuck you want to do because it's not like you can have a hobby when you're a fucking coal miner. Jesus Christ. And in terms of
your hobbies are drunk and fuck.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the hands being fake, you'd think they would have just like made fake knives. Like, wouldn't that have looked better?
Maybe.
I loved Mabel's death. I think I watched the version on Prime that is considerably cut down. So I'm assuming there was a lot more blood in that scene. Am I correct in assuming that?
So that is more like Mabel. That's in the laundromat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is way more about the aftermath of that. And when the sheriff finds her. And so that reminds me of the Toxic Avenger, and because the little lady gets chunked in the dryer. But yeah, so that's one of those scenes that had to get cut, and that was one of the things that the MPA went to town on this movie about. Some people say that it is because the MPAA was getting back at Paramount, who released this for what they put out in Friday the 13th. Kind of like saying like, you got away with that one, but you're not getting them with this. And they demanded that every death in the movie get cut down. So the reveal of what happened to Mabel it's fucking rough. Like, it is so brutal. The sheriff opens up the door and she just like flops out with her head going towards the floor, and she just looks cooked. It's fucking nasty. So yeah, that one is way more about that. And then when I made the comment just a minute ago about the pickaxe going through your chin and out of your eyeball, that was what happened to Happy, and that is recreated lovingly in the remake, which I did see in 3D. So when they did that scene, the eyeball comes flying at you. It was great, fucking great.
My God. Oh, it's ridiculous. I remember the trailer to that, and I'd never heard of My Bloody Valentine. And I remember I was like, that was 2009, so I was 14. I remember thinking, that looks terrible. And I don't care at this point. I don't give a shit. I love terrible. Give me terrible.
Well, I think if you can just appreciate it, like just go in there knowing, because I mean, you know certain movies you're going to watch that you know what you're going to get, and with the majority of things that came out in the 80s, slashers obviously dominated and made a lot of money. You know, in the case of Nightmare on Elm Street, it essentially built New Line.
Yeah.
There were a lot of other things that were going on in the 80s. I mean, you had movies like Punk, like straight up monster movies, and those always kind of get lost in the shuffle, which is sad because Pumpkinhead is a brilliant ass movie. The werewolf movies that came out in the 80s, those are fantastic, for all different reasons. And slashers are just fun. They're supposed to be fun. You're not going there to try and have some fucking revelation brought to your life about all of this. You're just like, no, just have fun. Go there for the boobs and the blood, and come out with a few laughs afterwards.
Yeah, I'm here to see very creative murder, because that's, you know, where else am I going to get to see that?
And not be looked down upon.
Yeah, I mean, I always hate when you say, like, you know, when you love a slasher film or like a horror movie, people who give you like oh, really? Like, I didn't know it was better than you. Like that kind of look. Fuck you. I hate that so much. That's why I don't like movie clubs at college. Like I'm in grad school and I'm thinking about joining some movie clubs. But every time I've done that, I've met those people who are like, "What? You like horror movies?" I'm like, "Yeah, and now I know I don't like you." So I'm going to leave now. I don't want to deal with that anymore.
That was my entire film school life.
Ugh.
Was being that guy. Unless we had like certain classes, like I had one class that was all about the history of horror, like up to 1965 or something like that. So I mean, I watched all these amazing ass movies all the way up through 1965, and it was nothing but a bunch of, well, predominantly horror nerds, but then some other kids just because they did an elective for their film studies degree. And plenty of other classes I took where people just like turn their nose up, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, I ended up using it later on in life after you get taught how to like watch movies and analyze them and things like that. I remember saying to one person who like started to fucking poo-poo me for my love of The Toxic Avenger and fucking all these other blocky horror movies, and I'm like, I can look at your favorite movie and tell you 45 different ways why I think it sucks. So let's just go there and, you know, enjoy, have fun with something. You shouldn't always watch a movie and think that by watching it you're getting some kind of honor or you're getting some kind of fucking moral high ground on somebody. Kiss my ass. It's art. It's meant to be enjoyed. It's subjective. Not everybody enjoys the same thing.
Yeah.
Why would you try and shit on somebody else?
Yeah, I've never understood that mentality of like, I don't enjoy it, so you don't get to enjoy it either. Like, what the fuck? Why would you want to live your life like that? Let people enjoy things. Just let people have fun. You know, life sucks. Let us have horror movies.
Yeah, and not only that, I think the fact that horror has existed, film has existed, says something. That it's managed to be relevant and stay strong the entire time, and has evolved with the medium of film from the very beginnings, from the silent era, German expressionist horror films, all the way to now, and the fact that it's always been there and it's all been used in a way to have some kind of catharsis in a way.
I've said on this podcast many times that I think horror is the most creative and most expressionable genre, because you really can go wherever you want. It is the most available genre. You can do anything that the only thing that's restrained is your own imagination. Like if you want to make a horror movie, make whatever you want. There's nowhere you can't go. Not every genre has that. Every genre is a lot of the other genres are pretty restrictive and haven't evolved as much as horror has. I mean, you couldn't do a film like Hereditary in 1962. I mean, you'd freak out too many people. There'd be heart attacks. But because we have that now, 30, 40 years from now, we'll have a filmmaker who saw Hereditary and was influenced and can make something even scarier. Like it's built on everybody else's back. Horror is just an ongoing, constant pyramid. And I love that so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's very malleable, and on top of that, there are a lot of universal things that you can experiences and feelings that you can hit on that will always be relevant to human beings in general. I mean, that's why the majority of horror movies take place at, we as a species innately have fear of the dark because we can't see that well in the dark. And there's always something else that can see in the dark that's looking out, waiting for you and stalking you. And it's just all of that fear of the unknown, and just all these ways that can be represented, whether it's some scary dude in a fucking miner's outfit. You can't see his eyes. Is he really a person? Is he fucking burned up and gross? Or is he a big, hulky, deformed monster? Like, and you can imprint whatever you want to on that. And it's amazing. And I think that's why slashers, why they had such a boom in the 80s and kind of became, cliche and worn out. I think if done right, you could have some come back. And I don't think they'll ever be prevalent as they were in the 80s. I think one of the best ones that came out and still is being sequels to this day was the Hatchet movies. And I think that, but because of how they're handled and the way they're treated with reverence for what came before them, while at the same time there's a tangible link in that Kane Hodder is playing a slasher, and he is also Jason Voorhees. So it's like there's these ways of bridging all of those things, and it's fun, and it's not trying to fool you and be smarter than you or whatever. You know what you're getting when you watch these movies, and they have been entertaining time after time after time. So that is definitely an example of somebody who watched those movies growing up, like you were saying about Hereditary, and found a way to their own monster. And I love all those movies. I really like, we already talked about Hatchet. I would love to just keep going with them. So that's definitely going to be on my long list of topics we're going to cover.
Oh, hell yeah. And I'll be the first to admit that I have not seen as much as I'd like to have seen, but that's a big part of why I started this podcast, is so I have a reason and an excuse to finally check out these countless list of horror films and other genres that I've just been kind of putting off. My Bloody Valentine was on that list. Now I've seen it, and who knows what I'll, watch in the next few weeks. It's great. It's an ongoing journey, and it's awesome. Speaking of My Bloody Valentine, this movie has perhaps one of the most vile deaths I've ever seen in a horror movie, just because personally, I was like, ugh. And it's when that one kid gets drowned in hot dog water.
It's so funny that you said that, because I was actually in my head like waiting for it to come out with something, but then I was gonna be like, you didn't think the dirty dog water was the worst?
That's the worst.
Yeah,
straight up.
Fucking terrible. I mean, getting boiled alive is awful enough, but yeah, and just a bunch of fucking lips and hooves fucking marinating you to death. No, thank you.
Oh my God. It's hands down the most disgusting death in the movie. I felt so bad for that kid. God. And then when the bartender gets tricked by his own trap, I thought that was hilarious. He just keeps opening the door to check it. And then it's really Harry just standing there. That was funny. How many times do you need to be certain it's going to work? Like, we checked it like 6 times.
Well, I think that's one of those things where, the director knew those kinds of things. If you know how to mess with people, that's a very Hitchcock move, is to like, I know what you think is going to happen. It's going to happen yet. It's not going to happen yet. Oh, not going to happen yet. and fucking happens. You're like, oh shit, you got me. You told me it was coming, and I was preparing myself, but you still fucking got me. That's clever ass shit. Even though earlier on, when he's talking about Harry Warden and stuff in the bar, he gets like, he kind of like breaks the fourth wall, and he's like kind of like actually looking at the camera and like telling the story. So he's like looking at you, you know, telling you and warning you of all the shit that went down, and like how you shouldn't be, you should take this seriously, you know. I kind of like that part of it, and that's just another touch this movie has that just makes it just, it's a little sweet spot for me.
Yeah, there's some moments that they're cool. They're really like, nice. The scene at the mine when they all just decide to have this party at the fucking coal mine, and Sarah's there with Axel, and TJ's like, you know, not my job to watch her or something like that. Says to Axel, they have a brief fight, and Sarah's like, what are you doing? TJ's like, tell her, like, you know, what does she say? She says to Axel, like, I've got my own mouth, and TJ's like, well, use it and say what's really happening. Like, what a prick on both of those guys are like such alpha male dickheads. It's crazy. And then they team up to save her. They're like, we got to get Sarah out of the mine, bro. I was like, yeah, bro, let's do this, bro. It's great.
It's good shit.
So the ending when it's revealed that Axel is Harry Warden because the real Harry Warden like killed his dad, I think was the deal.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit too much of Halloween and Psycho kind of mixed together, like the big reveals. Like Harry Warden was, you know, in the mental hospital. This guy's clearly got parent issues. It just felt like a little too cliched to me.
Well, I think that might be a little bit because you've seen a lot of that already, and
True.
you know, it's one of those things, like it's kind of hard sometimes to not think about that, and then when it happens, you're like, all right, whatever. But then when you think about it when it came out, I think using Harry Warden as kind of like this almost MacGuffin in a way, in that you're believe that he still got out from somewhere. Like where is this guy gonna hide in a fucking small ass mining town? Like, come on, somebody see it, know where he is. He doesn't just yearly walk from the mental institution to go happily kill people on Valentine's Day. So when it kind of revealed that way, and he even like goes back into the mine, like just like to almost just say like, I am Harry Warden, like I'm not Axel, I am Harry. And just, it's very weird and kind of off that he does just like totally flip his lid, because he does a good job at times of kind of hiding that really crazy streak in him.
True, but I wish we gotten a little bit more build up to that, a little bit more of like, you know, the tease at it, or maybe that if that had happened like halfway through, and we could have gotten a little bit more of crazy evil Axel. I just felt it felt kind of shoehorned in at the end. I think the execution could have been better. I think.
Sure. They actually kept that a secret from the cast for real the entire time they were shooting, and not even Neil Affleck knew it was him until he got to the makeup chair for a fake arm, and then he was like, "Oh shit, it's me." Oh damn! All right. So that was something that was an actual thing to try, I think, to get some of the actors, perhaps. At least if I was a director and I was doing something like that, I would intentionally put something like that in place to get a little bit of suspense, so these people are really kind of trying to, in their performance, figure out who's really doing this. But yeah, no, I agree. There could have been some, because this movie moves. It moves really fast, and I don't know if that's partly the way MPA like made them cut stuff, and that is up for debate. The director says as much as like 9 minutes cut out of the movie, and then some more conservative estimates put in 3 to 6 minutes that were cut from the death scenes and some other so who knows for real. It was either in the 2009 DVD I have or the Shout Factory one that came out. The director actually approved the footage that they had, and he said it was like, I had a quote somewhere. He said it was like 80% assembled of like what was missing, and then 95% the way he wanted it to be.
Oh.
So, how much of that is just like straight up gore, or there's actually some missing scenes that might tie some of those threads together? I don't know. I actually don't have that Shout Factory one. I really want it because it does have 2 different cuts of the movie. So once some fucking fun money comes around, I'm gonna scoop that thing up.
Very nice. Very nice. The last thing I want to talk about is the ballad that plays over the end credits. That made me laugh more than anything in this film. Like, this is some like legend. It felt like it reminded me of the Lemmy Wink song from South Park. That's all it had. That's all that was in my head. It was so like they were playing it like, you know, like a bard would play it in the 1300s. It was so goofy.
Well, I mean, I think it's no more goofy than the fucking Smokey and the Bandit bluegrass music when they're all leaving the showers and fucking playing grab ass, getting into their cars. Like, it's no more off-putting than that. And I actually think they were really leaning into, you know, their whole mythos that they had built up about Harry Warden and all that stuff. And I'm down, especially so like, okay, I know I've told you about it before. This weird collection of shirts that I put together with Caleb, and then we're trying to kind of make a script out of it. Part of it has a band in it. It's kind of based on some friends of mine, and I started to think about songs and like lyrics and all stuff. So that kind of stuff really, like, it resonates with me when somebody can pull more out of the material and like make it bigger than that. So I mean, anytime somebody's like making music or, you know, like poetry or whatever, and they're like using this other created thing as inspiration, I think it's pretty creative.
It is cool. It is cool. And I don't want to disparage the song. It just made me laugh because I was not expecting a full on like medieval ballad at the end of the movie.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, anybody who can, you know, build on anything else, nothing but respect. I only have 2 bits of trivia on the Filmgazm facts. Number 1, in an interview with TerrorTrap.com, director George Mahalka said that the shooting location at Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia, was chosen because of its rustic atmospheric appearance. However, when the locals found out that a movie was going to be shot there, they decided to spend $50,000 to have the mine painted and cleaned. This, of course, diminished the reason that the production wanted the location to begin with. Mahalka said that $75,000 of the film's budget was then used to return the mine to its original state so they could shoot. That is hilarious. They cleaned the mine. God. $75,000 to get it cleaned. God, he must have been so pissed.
Yeah, that's and a mine, no less. Like a place notorious being dirty and disgusting. What does that look like cleaned up? Really? Like,
who the hell knows?
Of an inch coal dust instead of a half inch? Like, what the fuck?
That's great. I love that. And number 2, Quentin Tarantino has named My Bloody Valentine as his all-time favorite slasher film. So if you needed a seal of approval, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, but I can also, like, knowing Tarantino's story and knowing that he grew up, you know, work video store and that was his film school, I can totally see him being the guy behind the counter going, nah, man, you don't need to watch part 5, man. No, man, you need to watch My Bloody Valentine. That's your fucking slasher right there. You know, like that's what I see him talking about. You know,
That was a fantastic Tarantino impression. Oh my God.
Look, I sometimes I feel like I am Tarantino in that, like, I consumed so many movies when I was a kid. Like, that was what I did. And yeah, like I wish I had his encyclopedic knowledge of movies like that. Like, anybody that has a way to pull that kind of information like that they have my respect. I mean, I've had people tell me that they're like, "Wow, like you know a lot about movies," and I'm like, "No way!" Like, there are some other people I would bow down to. He's definitely one of them.
Oh hell yeah. I mean, he's kind of a dick, but he's deserved. Like, he's earned the right to be a dick. I hope one day to earn the right to be a dick.
Yeah, I mean, some people just do it and don't think about all the work that goes into actually being one.
Yeah. My Bloody Valentine was remade in 2009 with Jensen Ackles, Jamie King, Kerr Smith, Edie Gathegi, and Tom Atkins. It was a big hit at the box office, received mixed reviews from critics who called the performances wooden and the story formulaic, but it did gross over 100 million, which is pretty damn admirable. So I haven't seen the remake. How does it hold up?
I mean, I went into it having only like just found out about My Bloody Valentine at the time. I think it was probably like the early 2000s when I first watched it. And then when the DVD came out, I bought it because I heard about, all the missing footage. I was like, oh yeah. Watched it, and then I was like, oh shit, they remade. Oh yeah. And it's 3D. I was like, yes. I actually haven't seen it since it came out, so it's been a long time since I watched it. From what I remember, though, it's all right. I don't, and I'm not saying this to be like one of these snooty purists or whatever, but I kind of enjoy the original, and that's only based on having revisited the original recently and not watching the remake again. I definitely need to kind of get some fresh eyes on it and see just how much has kind of changed from it. So, I remember having fun with it for sure, because I was in film school, and like I said earlier, that was my first and far only screen Tom Atkins experience, and whew, I love that guy. I love him so much.
Right on. Well, I don't think we've done any remakes on the podcast yet. So, maybe this will come up in the pipeline sometime soon. So as far as the original My Bloody Valentine, I give it a 6. It's not bad. It's not particularly very good, I didn't think, but there's a lot of things to appreciate about it, but I don't know if I'll watch it again anytime soon. That's just, that's me.
I'm giving it a 7. I need to actually write about it. There's a lot of reviews that I've been meaning. I've like handwritten a lot of stuff out, and I just haven't typed any up. But it's definitely one of those kind of, for me, it is unique enough in like the setting and the characters to set it apart from a lot of the other slashers that were coming out at the time. And early enough in the decade, it really is one of the just one of the new ones, and one that like did lean into the holiday part of it.
Yeah. And
I think almost started something in that regard. I mean, Friday the 13th is, that's more of a superstition than a holiday. I mean, now it's a holiday. Fucking, I love Friday. I look for those every year on the calendar. I'm like, so much so that I know that any month that starts on a Sunday has a Friday the 13th in it.
Oh, right on. Very cool.
So there you go. Every month that starts on a Sunday, Friday the 13th, guaranteed.
Do you like carve time out of your day on Friday the 13th to watch a Friday the 13th?
Yeah. And horror movies in general. So this is, I could could be obsessed with, Call of Duty and sit and get extremely fat in video games like that. This is my thing, watching horror movies, writing about them now, which has been great, and being able to talk about them. Those are the things that I really enjoy. I am very fortunate, I think, even though there are, literally dozens of podcasts where people do this kind of I think it's unique because it's that are talking about them. Not everybody's going to have the same ideas, same opinions on things.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's definitely a special for sure.
Very nice. Hell yeah, man. I'm loving this constant, it's a journey. I know I keep saying that, but it is very much a journey, and I'm loving every second of it, except for when nature, fucks up my state and doesn't let me do it on a Wednesday. So next week, God willing, it goes back to Julie with our first foray into the work of M. Night Shyamalan. A young boy claims he is visited by ghosts, and only a child psychologist with his own demons can help the boy find peace. It's a film that may contain the greatest plot twist of the 90s, and Julie has never seen it before. So she has no clue of what the plot twist in this movie is. We're diving into The Sixth Sense, another Oscar-nominated horror flick and the film that launched Shyamalan's divisive career. Going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to seeing her reaction to that twist that literally everyone else on the planet knows about.
That's amazing to me. Like when she said that, I could not believe it. I could not believe there's a person who hasn't even heard about this movie and let alone not seen it, because that movie was spoiled like as soon as it came out. So like, how have you managed to just miss that? It's mind-boggling.
A sheltered childhood and a late foray into horror films. That's how you completely miss The Sixth Sense.
Fair enough. I'll accept that excuse.
So that's going to be great. I'm glad we were able to do this episode, even it was a few days late. I want to thank Josh for being here today. Thanks. Appreciate it.
No problem. I do want to give you a couple of recommendations for some more connotation. So a couple that were standouts to me is Happy Birthday to Me.
Okay. That's
another kind of like whodunit movie. It's got one of the best box arts I've ever seen. The original Prom Night with Jamie Lee Curtis was made in Canada. The sequel, which is now getting a lot of kind of love for just like how crazy it is and how I think it's kind of awesome. They did it on the last drive-in. It's Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2 and is in no way related to the original. And it's like more like a possession movie. Oh. And it just bananas. So bananas. For sure. There is one called Pin, which is about an anatomical dummy that it becomes involved in a family's life in a very terrifying way. Yeah. It's weird. I've actually never seen it, and I want, based on the description I read of it, I was like, oh, no, I need to see this. So I'm putting that out there. And one that is definitely right up my alley is called Deadly Eyes, and it is about rats. Only so because the rats in the movie were dachshunds in rat costumes.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. Just think about that. Just think about how ridiculous that is, because they're supposed to be giant rats. So why not dress up a bunch of wiener dogs and have them fucking coming after you?
I need to see this. Oh my God.
I'm going to hunt it down. And apparently there was a novelization of it that gives you some more information. So who knew? That's another passion of mine, is trying to track as many novelizations, horror movies. Trying my damnedest, not trying to cry when I buy them, because some of them can get retarded expensive.
Yeah.
And those were like all the 80s ones that I kind of just wanted to touch on.
Nice.
Temporary Canadians that are doing, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They are the Twisted Twins, aka the Shoshka sisters. They came out onto the scene with a movie called Dead Hooker in a Truck. It's great. It's great. They made a movie called American Mary.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was them. They also do their own like cameos in their movies. So you get to see them in there. They're in American Mary. They also remade that in 2019, I think. So it took on their idol, the god of Canadian filmmaking, if you will, David Cronenberg. So I do like the Shoshka sisters. I think they're pretty interesting. And that remake was cool because, I mean, the movie is about a woman, and this movie is more from a woman perspective, which I think is pretty cool. February is Women in Horror Month too, so got to shout out to the ladies. And then I talked to you about these before. Some of my favorite movies, Wolf Cop and Another Wolf Cop. Some of the most banana shit I've ever, and I can't wait till we can just go fucking hairy balls deep on these movies. Those movies are a riot. Yeah, definitely, like those things like really kind of are like made by kids who grew up watching these movies. Yeah. And it's just this fucking standing on the shoulders of giants, because as far as I'm concerned, Cronenberg's his own genre as Canadian movies go. You can't really lump him into the Canucksploitation thing, because he's this example of horror movies that are very artful and well constructed and well thought out and have something to say. And I think the only other thing I want to talk about with Canada and how relevant they've been to American filmmaking is, if we didn't have Canada and the tax incentive they gave to productions, I don't know that George Romero would have had the longevity his career had, because he made a lot of his movies in his later years in Canada. So much so that I think he was a dual citizen of the US and Canada. So yeah, I mean, the fact that, I mean, I think Land of the Dead was in Canada, Bruiser was shot in Canada, the other the last of the movies were shot in Canada. So that's, and for somebody who his whole career was all about making movies his way and doing it on his means and fucking you to any studio. I mean, he made 2 studio movies his entire career. Like that is something that is very special about Canada. And, let's bless those hockey loving, maple syrup drinking folks for being able to bring us these weird, wacky movies and keeping George Romero around for a while.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Thanks, Canada. I completely forgot Cronenberg was Canadian. Yeah. Fuck yeah. So great. He's another guy. I've seen a good chunk, but there's a lot I have not tapped into with Cronenberg. And now that his kid's making movies, the list is just growing. So, awesome. Yeah. When Austin and I decided to kind of retool Filmgazm and give you guys a little bit more control over the episodes, I was amazed we have not yet come to Wolf Cop. Like I was waiting for that like day one.
Well, look, I don't want to be too on the nose. All right. I want to show you I'm well-rounded. Don't worry. Wolf Cop is coming. I promise you.
I figured. Yeah. I'm counting down the days. This was fun. It only takes, one natural disaster to make me miss this. Don't miss Fargo on Oscar Sunday and Nomadland on the sneak preview on Monday, God willing. And also don't miss our new comedy movie podcast, Guys Who Giggle, launching in March. To all my fellow Texans going through this frozen nightmare, stay safe and stay warm. We are going to get through this together. In the meantime, don't party in a coal mine. especially when there's an active killer going after people who party in a coal mine. Stay safe and keep watching movies.